page 3, 4 lines from the top of the page. We learned yesterday the core, important, based on the Hadibra Shlishi, the third utterances of the 10 Commandments. As we know, we have 613 Commandments. The third one of the 10 core list is you shall not pronounce the name of God in vain. The Torah expressed to us in its most severity the punishment and the seriousness of one who expresses himself using the name of God to prove his point, to make a vow in a certain way. And later on, as we're going to study, page 39 and more, is the severe consequences not only upon a person but can be even fatal for his future generation as well. So one of the way we atone, we explain that it's the bringing an offering which called Olev Yored or Korban Chatat, which is a sin offering, when someone utter some form of indirect or unconscious or some type of unintentional vow. If we go to the next step, as we explained yesterday, we just learned in last week Torah portion, the biblical chapter, the story of Jacob, who unintentionally cursed out his late wife Rachel when her father was in search of his idol, and Jacob said, "Whoever have this idol will not leave," and he wasn't realizing that by saying so, he cursed out his beloved wife who passed away at her 30s. So what we try to derive from that, we take seriously the whole idea of making an utterances, an expression of words, in particular when it's used the name of God. So now the next step is we ask several questions. When it's come to the structure of our Mishnah, we learned at length yesterday that the Mishnah has a certain structure. We learned the concept of 2 biblical commandments, that it's actually 4 if we add the 2 rabbinic, the derivative from those. So now we ask a question, what's the differentiation between here and other tractates? If you remember, when we studied Tractate Shevuot at the first page, we have there the whole idea of carrying things between different domains. Someone carry from public domain to private domain and vice versa, and we did not expand the way we expanded here. Why over here we have all this expansion over this concept of 2, that there are 4, versus when it's come to law of carrying on Shabbat in the beginning of Tractate Shevuot, or the law of a recognition of tzarat, which is a different type of either dermatological disease or leprosy in a biblical time. Why in those cases we do not expand the way we do it here? So in a way we try to juxtapose the mindset of a different statement in the Mishnayot. So the Gemara answered and said, Amrei, we said, respond to this question, Shvuot v'idiot atuma gabe hadadei ktivan, v'damyan hadadei bekorban olev yored, tanlu gabe hadadei, ve'aide de tana tartei tana kulu. So when it's come to those concepts of making an oath, or the ritual impurity, we have a not only attachment in a sense of a biblical text, but we also have the similarity or even identical way of atonements, which is the variation of offering. We said that they have, if it was inadvertent violation, so we have the variable of offering. So that's the reason, because you have the consequences which is identical, that's the reason why we combine them in a sense of structuring the Mishnah. But here, since the Tana has already stated 2 instances of 2, that there are 4, so he states all the others as well. Next question, the second question. Patach b'shvuot u'mefaresh yediot hatum'ah. So the beginning of the Mishnah, if you look, we derive from one concept to another. We begin with the law of oath, someone will make different oath, and then we go to the awareness of ritual impurity. Why does he not elaborate on the first things first, and then the second one second? So he said, Aide de zutrin milayu, pasik sharaleu v'hade de tanu Shevuot den fishan milayu. So one, you have those expressions of ritual impurity, awareness. So in a way, there are not too many. So because there are few, the Tana, the rabbis in the Mishnah, dispenses the discussion with them, versus, and then he go all those details of oath, because as we explained in the introduction, when it comes to oath, there are so many variations of person accepted upon himself, upon his future, the different form of oath and vows that impose upon by the court upon a person, and more. So because the subject is much varied and numerous, that's the reason we have it differently. In general, the whole idea of tum'ah, the law of ritual impurity awareness, it's only 2 chapters of the Mishnah or the oath. The others, as Tosfot explained, are 6. Now, since we said that 2 that are really 4, that's part of the Mishnah, we said 2 biblical concepts that are actually 4, שבועות 2 שהן 4. When it's come to those oaths, person make a commitment, there are 2 that it's actually 4. What does that mean? 2 שאוכל ושלא אוכל שהן 4, אכלתי ושלא אכלתי. Person take an oath and he said, I will eat, or I will, negative, I will not eat. Okay? That it's actually 4, because an oath that I ate or I did not eat. So as you see here, you have in reality 4 out of these 2. ידיעות הטומאה 2 שהן 4. When it's come to awareness of ritual impurity, 2 that actually 4. 2 ידיעת טומאת קודש וידיעת טומאת מקדש, שהן 4 קודש ומקדש. The same concept. We have awareness when someone walking the temple, the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and he's in the state of ritual impurity. So there is a concept of aware. You know what you're doing, what's going on or not. So when it's come to ritual impurity, awareness of ritual impurity that leads to the person eating holy things, which is again, if you are not ritually impure, you are not allowed to eat certain sacred food, and to his lapse of awareness in the tum'ah that lead his entering part of the temple. So again, these are 2 different entities entering the temple, eating something that you're not supposed to eat if you are in a state of ritual impurity, that there are actually 4, that there are 4, and another 2, which is his lapse of awareness that he is eating holy things, or that he is entering is the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple domain. Now the law of Shabbat, the same concept, יציאות השבת 2 שהן 4, 2 הוצאה דעני והוצאה דבעל הבית, שהן 4 הכנסה דעני והכנסה דבעל הבית. We learn, you can watch it, you can learn it, beginning of Tractate Shabbat, we dealt with it at length. We just give you the vignette, the abbreviation. You have a, hypothetically speaking, poor person that's staying in one domain, and you have the owner of the house, which is in a private domain, in his home. You have the transferring of entities between one domain to another. So you have actually 2, meaning private to public domain, done by an indigent man to taking out done by the householder. That it's actually 4 because we have the bringing in from the public domain to a private domain done by the poor man, and the bringing in done by the householder. So as you see, the same concept. We have 2 biblical, that with the rabbinic expansion we go to the 4, and that's the whole different avenue of things that can happen between pulling in, taking out, pulling out, taking in. מראות נגעים 2 שהן 4, the same mindset, the same structure. When we talk awareness of tzarat, which is, as we said earlier, is dermatological disease in the biblical time, very similar to our modern day leprosy, but some differences. So anyway, when it's come to this appearance of that diseases, that there are 2, that there are 4, the Torah expresses שניים שאת ובהרת, שהם 4 שאת ותולדתה בהרת. So you have se'et, it's again is a biblical different sign of dermatological diseases, that it's actually baheret. Baheret literally it's some flesh, lightening the flesh of the skin. But if you can, if you look at different mefarshim later on page 6 in the Gemara and more, you see a different expansion of what exactly it means. But for our discussion at this point, it's 4 different ones that arrive originally by these 2, which is the Se'et and his subdivision, and Baheret and his subdivision. So now we ask a question. The next one is Mani Matnitin, to whom this Mishnah goes to. Lo Rabbi Ishmael v'lo Rabbi Akiva. Not go neither Rabbi Ishmael nor Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Ishmael. What did he say? He said, he said only the obligation you can have only upon, meaning the liability. It's to bring a korban or levi yorel, a burial offering. It's for a false oath of utterance, except for oath concerning the future. So basically you only hold something that happened before. Rabbi Akiva, if you propose the Mishnah reflects the point of view of Rabbi Akiva, the only concealment of ritual impurity that is liable to Olev Yored, to burial offering, but is not liable for burial offering for concealment of the fact that the place he entered while he was ritually impure was part of the holy temple in Jerusalem. If you prefer, you go by the view of Rabbi Ishmael. You can go either way. Now we're going to expand it. You can go either to structures, some of them that liability of verbal offering, for some of them it's not liability. So again, depends upon how the oath they are actually for. It's all depend upon what exactly happened and how. If you go by the view of the Rabbi Akiva, mehen lechiyuv, by explaining that when the Mishnah states awareness of ritual impurity are two, that actually there are four, what we try to say here in different words is for some of them there is liability to bring olav yored, which is a verbal offering, and for some of them there is non-liability. So non-liability, not the way that we explained earlier. It is possible that only two of the four types of concealed awareness of ritual impurity result in Korban Olev Yorel, in a variable offering. The two instances in which the fact of the Tum'ah that is concealed. But those four here expand on that. Liftu, when the Mishnah mean that for some of the four there is non-liability. So when you have this statement in the Mishnah, we try to think that in a sense they are matching the Ma'ot Negaim. Ma'ot Negaim, as we said, that this the appearance of having tzarat. Tzarat, modern day language, we may use some form of ancient hepatitis infections or some dermatological diseases. It's very hard. A modern scholar try to examine those diseases in our days, and it's hard to compare. But the concept is the same concept. Mahatam kulho lechiyuva. So the same way as tzarat, that type of call it leprosy, it's we talk about liability that they cause. Afhacha name kulhu lechiyuva. So here too, it's Rashi said shehava toladot negaimen sheitaer mevi aleim korban olah. So the same way that the same way as you talk about oath of utterance and awareness of Tumah, the all four instances that we mentioned in a sense of having the liability that they cause. So the problem with that, as we said, is the Mishnah not follow neither Rabbi Ishmael nor Rabbi Akiva. So so the Gemara responded and said, Le'olam Rabbi Ishmael. Let's try to zoom in and understand the concept of Rabbi Ishmael, how it's matched. But the only question is, why Rabbi Ishmael not have any type of liability for any type of false shvuah, false oath of expression that apply to the expression in the past. V'chilo mechayev Rabbi Ishmael li she'avar. When Rabbi Ishmael did not say that you have a liability for something that utter in the past, korban. So only you talk in liability of bringing a sacrificial offering, that you have inadvertent sin. Aval malkut chiyuvei mechayev. When it's come to lashes, he imposed liability for willfully swearing a false oath that applies to the past. Uchederava, and that's apply to the view of the Rava, which is you have a malkot for someone who make a false swear about the past. The Marava beferush, it's lucidly, it's clearly, ribtat Torah Shevuot sheker, the Torah includes a false oath that a person deserve malkot, lashes, dumya de Shevuot shav. The same way as someone make a vain oath. Ma shav lishavar, the same way as the Torah said in Exodus chapter 20 verse 13, Lo tane bereacha ed shar, you shall not bear against your fellow false witnesses. And the same is Deuteronomy 5, you said Lo tane bereacha ed, but the first one shaker, the second one shav, you shall not bear against your fellow vain testimony. So Rabbeinu Hananel brings us forth, and he said the Torah equates false from vain. Mashav leshavar, the same way as vain pertain to the past. Av sheker, that's also false oath, it's compared to the vain oath pertaining to the past. So now the Gemara challenged the interpretation of the Mishnah. Bishlama achalti v'lo achalti kiderava. If you understand that we apply to what? To past oath, I ate and I did not eat, should be receive a malkot lashes. Follow the way Rabbi taught. Shelo ochal ve'achal nami. So if one swear I did not eat, and in fact does it, so he should be punished with malkot. Lav sheyesh bo ma'aseu. It's a prohibition involving action that he has violated. Ela ochal velo achal amai. But one who swears I will eat, in fact he did not eat, why should there be a malkot penalty? Lav she'ein bo ma'aseu. This is a prohibition that not involve in action. So the whole notion here in the Gemara that they challenge the interpretation of the Tana in our Mishnah is Rabbi Ishmael and the liability in the 4 cases of a oath of utterance is liability to receive malkot. So the Gemara answered and they said, the big question is, when we said the 4th one, I will eat, how does there will be a malkot? So they said, Kasavar Rabbi Ishmael, lav she'ein bo ma'aseh lokin. Rabbi Ishmael hold that if you have a prohibition that does not involve physical action, you do not receive malkot for that. So if you not receive malkot for that, so that the basically in a way it's the opposite than the general understanding, because we understand usually that the lashes penalty is limited to violation involve action. But here the Rabbi exposition is that the Torah explicitly included a false oath. That's the way Rabbeinu Hananel and Rashi said. So the Gemara asks, if the Mishnah reflects on the idea that we receive malkot for violating a prohibition does not involve action, you have a contradiction. Kashya Rabbi Yochanan, de Rabbi Yochanan, ad de Rabbi Yochanan. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Halakha Kista Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan said that usually if you don't have anybody attribute, so you have like a unknown Mishnah, you say that you follow Halakha there. So you basically go by the Stam Mishnah one receive malkot for violating a prohibition that does not involve action. Ve'itmar, and elsewhere we learn, שבועה שאוכל כיכר זו היום, one make an oath that I'm going to eat a certain loaf of bread today. ועבר היום ואוכלה, a day passed by and did not fulfill his commitment, his oath, he didn't eat it. You have here a disputation. In one hand, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shlokish Damri Tavaru are not okay. But the reasoning is different. So both of them, Rabbi Yochanan and his brother-in-law Rish Lakish, said he's not received malkot, no lashes, for failing to fulfill his oath. But the reasoning is total different reasoning. Why? Rabbi Yochanan אמר לנו לוקים משום דא ולאו שאין בו מעשה. וכל לאו שאין בו מעשה, לוקים על Rabbi Yochanan said that he is in prohibition but it did not involve action. So since it's not involve action, he's not received malkot for that. Because part of the requirement is to have action involvement in order to receive malkot for that. וריש לקיש אמר לנו לא כי ריש לקיש said that he does not receive malkot, התראת ספק הוא. Because it is a case of questionable warning. When you have a questionable warning, it's not considered a valid warning. So Rabbi Yochanan's statement here that one does not receive malkot for violating a prohibition that does not involve action is basically contradict what he said the earlier that achar follow stam mishnah. So the more answer, Rabbi Yochanan stama acharina ashkach. Rabbi Yochanan basically applies to a different Stam Mishnah, that one does not receive malkot for violating a prohibition that does not involve action. Hey Stama, give me that Stama, that unknown, anonymous Mishnah. Ile maha Stama, if you tell me that this applied to what? Ditnan, avala mutir betahor, one who leaves over until morning a meat of Pesach, Korban Pesach, we have a mitzvah of notar, which we talk many times. You should not leave until the morning. You have to eat the Korban of Pesach the same day. So one who leave the Pesach over him, that is tahor, that even if he is ritually pure, and one who breaks the bone of the Pesach offering that is impure, he does not receive the whole malkot, because you have here a violation does not involve action. We understand that if you want to break a bone of Pesach, Korban Pesach, that is impure, does not receive malkot. Torah said you should not break a bone, which is come to teach bekaser v'lo pasul. That's a feed, not one that is disqualified. If someone left over meat of Korban Pesach or Paschal lamb that is pure, ritually pure, it's not because it's a prohibition that does not involve in action. Any prohibition that does not involve action, you do not receive malkot. So the Gemara rejected these proofs and it said, remind Rabbi Yaakov, you know that the Tana in the Mishnah in Psachim and the Makot is Rabbi Yaakov. That he said that one does not receive malkot for violating a prohibition that does not involve action. Dilma Rabbi Yehuda, maybe perhaps is the view of Rabbi Yehuda. ומשום דבא כתוב ליתן עשה אחר לא תעשה. And because the pasuk come to provide a positive mitzvah after a prohibition, so you see here the whole idea is Rabbi Yehuda attributes the absence of malkot is in the case of one who leaves over to the special commandment the Torah prescribed to remedy the aveira. Ha'alav hachi lucky. Otherwise, you receive malkot for leaving over is not involved action. The Tanya lo totiru minu ad boker, v'notar minu ad boker b'esh tisrofu. The Torah said clearly, when it's come to Korban Pesach, the Paschal offering, they gather together and they bring the Paschal offering. If you have time restrictions, you have to do it right away. So the Torah said clearly, you shall not leave over from it until morning. That's called the notar, v'hanotar, and whatever left over in the morning, burn it in the fire. That's Exodus chapter 12, verse 10. Bahakatuv, the derivative from that pasuk, liten aseh achar lo ta'aseh. To have here a positive commandment, follow a negative one. Lomar, to teach us, she'ein lokim alav, that would not receive malkot for violating the prohibition, of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yaakov omer, Rabbi Yaakov explained, lo min Hashem hu zeh. It is not for the reason that one leaves over, not receive malkot, ela mishum dehava lav she'en bo maaseh, but because it is the living over. It is a prohibition that does not involve action. V'lav she'en bo ma'aseh en lokim alav. You have a prohibition that does not involve action, so it's not receive malkot. So you see the Tana of the Stam Mishnah in Psachim and Makot might be Rabbi Yehuda, in which case it does not contradict the Stam Mishnah, which has been explained to hold the one receive malkot for violating a prohibition that does not involve action. So which other Stam Mishnah then is Rabbi Yochanan, the source of ruling otherwise? So the Gemara said that a high stama ashkach, the Rabbi Yochanan found this stama, this anonymous Mishnah, that one will not receive malkot for violating something that does not involve action, from the following Mishnah. And here we're dealing in Mishnah that Mitzvah Shem we're going to study on page 27b. Shvuah shelo ochal kikar zu. A person make an oath, and he said, you see this loaf of bread, I'm taking an oath that I will not eat this loaf. Shvuah shelo ochlena. An oath that I will not eat it. So in a way, he made two oaths not to eat the loaf. Right? Lo ochal kikar zot, will not eat this loaf, and an oath that I will not eat it. And then he ate it. Va'achala. Page 4. Eino chayav ela achat. He is liable to only one single offering, because when you have the first oath, I will not eat this loaf, which means you'll not eat from the amount of kezait, that's the olive volume. When he said this loaf, he means that he restricts the oath to the specific, very particular loaf. So he can, in a sense, open the door for eating other loaves. So the second oath, you see later in the Gemara in 27b, that I will not eat it, however, means that he will not eat the entire loaf. That's the way the Ritva based in Rashi in 27b. So the way that we see it, that the Mishnah make two oaths in this sequence, and then eat the loaf, is liable, but a single offering. First oath is already rendered the entire loaf prohibition to him. The second one, in effect, bind him to fulfill what he's already bound to do. And he's not bringing an offering for violating an oath to fulfill the mitzvah. So, but you see here that he needs to bring only one single offering, the one for violating one oath. Zoi, that's the prime example. Shvuat bitui, the expression of oath in vain. Shechayavin al zdona malko, that one who express it intentionally receive malkot, receive lashes for that violation. Ve'al shigegata, but if it was unwittingly, unintentionally, korban ole veyored, a verbal offering, as we said, for the rich, the animal, for the poor, ofot, dal shebar dalim, solet, etc. So the Gemara now bring the part of the Mishnah that said this is zuhi de chayavin al zdona malkot, aval ochal velo achal lo laki. But one who said, I will eat and does not eat, is not receive malkot. Because as we said earlier, it's not involved action. So if you have a prohibition that does not involve action, so that Stam Mishnah that Rabbi Yochanan found hold that one does not receive malkot for violating a prohibition does not involve action. So the Gemara says, the Gemara asks Mikdi, Hai Stama, V'Hai Stama. This both, it's a anonymous Mishnah, which means our Mishnah on page 2 and the Mishnah later on page 27b. Both are anonymous Mishnah, Stam Mishnah. Mai Chazed De'avid Ka'istama Le'ad Avid Ka'istama. So Rabbi Yochanan, who see fit rule, follow the one Stam Mishnah, one does not receive Malkot for an action, he ruled according to other Mishnah, which hold that one can receive Malkot even though he did not do action. So he said, "V'leta'amich Rabbi Gufe eches tam lan hachi v'acha achi." So how Rabbi himself said this Stam Mishnah here and the other anonymously there. Elamikara, you have to say that he initially admits Savar, he hold lav she'in bo ma'aseh lokim alav. If you have a prohibition that is not involved in actions, here one receive malkot. Ustama, when you have stam, meaning unattributed, is anonymous statement of Mishnah, on our Mishnah on page 2, it's basically v'hadar savar en lokim alav ustama. So he stated the view anonymously, and then subsequently he reversed himself and held that one does not receive malkot for violating it, and he stated the view anonymously on page 27b. Mishnah, the original Mishnah that we have on page 2, lo zaza mimkoma, it's not moving from its place.